Testing 1 2. Test 1 2.
Have you ever wondered what has happened to the United States and its once vibrant culture? Have you ever wondered why a virtuous American culture has been in decay for over 60 to 70 years? The book Deus Ex Machina, God from the Machine, explains how foreign belief systems have been imported into the United States by foreign intellectual agents to be used to fundamentally transform the most prosperous and free nation in the world into a typical third world country. Learn how the progressive academics, progressive activists, large corporations, and the mainstream media have become appendages of the federal government, a Praetorian Guard, and an extension of the political vanguard class. Deus Ex Machina exposes the cogs of the machine that progresses our civil society to chaos and subjugation. Get this tool to educate others and illuminate the truth on the battlefield of ideas. Let's make a difference. Get Deus Ex Machina, the progression of secular socialism, from Amazon.com and Lulu.com today.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston? Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. You're in our field with you now. Okay, ready for me to come out? All set. Okay, I'm on the top step. It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next. You've got 3 more steps, and then I'll all of them. Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there, and both hands down about the 4th rung up.
Roger that. 10 miles is back on my nose. Watch one again.
As we say to our nation tonight, we say to our government, we even say to our FBI, we will not be harassed. We will not make a butchery of our conscience. We will not be intimidated, and we will be heard.
6 miles, 6 miles. Valley 2, Valley 2. Turn it into me. Roger that. 12 miles. 4 miles. Take it right. Roger that. Good throw, good throw. Let me talk to the other trailer. Coming hard, stop.
Shoot him! I don't got time.
Got the cycle lights.
I got the second one on the nose right now.
Hey, I'm high cover on you.
Lock him up. Lock him up.
What's up, folks? Battlefield Live. Chris Pilier, Lanterns Media Network. Want to thank you for joining us on the battlefield tonight. We got a great show lined up for you, as usual. And a lot of stuff in the news today. A lot of people are shocked. There's people stunned, trying to figure out what's going on with Donald Trump. Some are saying he joined the Democrats today. We'll talk about that tonight. We'll see if there's any credence to that comment and explore the different political outcomes and the procedures that may be taking place here. We'll also talk about what's going on with the politicization of these 2 storms, Harvey and Irma. And of course, there's 2 other storms, named storms now, hurricanes in the south region of the country. And we'll talk a little bit about the latest one, Irma, what's going to happen there. It's absolutely devastating what's going on in St. Martin. Looks like Puerto Rico is getting hit right now. Also, we'll talk about what's going on with the Kim Jong-un. That's right. The North Korean leader. The little inbred and the crap that he's doing over there. And whether or not we're going to actually see some military action from the United States. And I do believe that there's a possibility we could see something. There's stuff in the news, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's, it could happen. A lot of this stuff is trying to get the news out there to maybe warn this idiot of what he could possibly see. We'll talk about that all tonight on the battlefield. But before we do that, let's go ahead and make sure you share Lanterns Buzz and the Liberty Eagle. We're Facebook Live right now, as well as on YouTube and Twitter. Lanterns Buzz, hashtag Lanterns Buzz. 2 Z's. We'll be right back after the short break on the Battlefield Live from Lanterns Media Network and the Liberty Eagle. We'll be right back after the short pause.
We're here to fix the machine.
Battlefield Live.
You're listening to the Battlefield Live with Chris Pilier from Lanterns Media Network, the Battlefield Live radio program. I want to thank you for joining us on the battlefield tonight. We have a good show lined up for you tonight. Tons of information. We're going to try to pack it in this hour. Make sure you stick with us throughout the entire show. There's a lot of great things. I want to make sure that you share this particular broadcast. You can catch us right now on the Liberty Eagle on Facebook Live. Make sure you share that. Also on Lanterns Buzz on Facebook. You can share there as well. Also, we're on Twitter. Or Periscope, but it's on Twitter. You can find us at Lanterns Buzz, and also on YouTube. Just do a keyword search for Lanterns Buzz. So make sure you do that. I want to give a shout out to Kelly and of course Wendy. What's going on, Wendy? Wendy's a regular listener. Also George is in the house, and Kevin, of course, is in the house as well. Everybody's loading in right now into the battlefield. This is the battlefield of ideas. So I'm looking for your responses on what I'm talking about. I have my ideas about things. It doesn't mean they're always right. So I challenge you to challenge me. Hello, Kelly. So make sure if you all have questions for me, you can check that out. I'll be actually checking today. I'll be checking the Liberty Eagle for any questions and comments and be responding throughout the show. Also, if you're interested in supporting us, you can go to the Patreon page at patreon.com/lanterns. That supports not only my show, but all the other talent on the Lanterns Media Network. All right, let's jump right in. So Donald Trump today, the news is kind of leaking out about what he was going to do with the debt ceiling, and somewhat of a shocking thing, I guess you could say, if you look at this from a political angle. Well, it's basically a 3-month extension of the debt ceiling. And look, let's be honest, folks. There's a lot of politics at play. Trump has expended a lot of capital, political capital, on trying to get some of the things that he wanted done. Much of his policies that he has wanted to push forward have been pushed back by Republicans and Democrats alike. Progressives in both parties have been pushing this back. And so I think in some cases Trump is feeling a little bit of, there's a little bit of entropy in his step. And this is something that I may be completely wrong with this, and I do believe that Donald Trump is his own man, right? We've had people like Steve Bannon leave the administration. Steve Bannon was more of the nationalist type of person, and it was expected, as Kelly came in, that we possibly would see separation from, I would say, the more nationalistic type of people. That doesn't mean that Donald Trump has changed. Maybe he's looking for some different types of deals to make, and that will play out here hopefully in the next couple of months, and we can really see what we have. Quite honestly, I'll be honest with everyone here. I was not a Trump supporter in the primaries. I was looking for a more conservative candidate, and Donald Trump came along. He became the candidate, and he was intended to shake things up, and he has in some respects. I think the biggest win for Donald Trump has been against the media. I think for the most part, he has beat the media up enough and delegitimized a lot of their efforts, and I think that's probably his biggest win. And, of course, you have the Supreme Court pick. But this particular debt ceiling deal that he has made, I'm kind of puzzled, and it's early stages right now. We'll see how the politics plays. But interesting enough, he went to the Democrats with this, okay? In much of his statements that he's made since this particular news has come out, he's really come short of praising Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Two of the most, to me, they're in many ways enemies to the Americanism. And Donald Trump has talked about working with them in order to be able to get this done. This is problematic. Number one, the biggest national disaster that we're facing right now, as terrible as these hurricanes are, the biggest national disaster that we have is the skyrocketing debt that we have seen under Presidents Bush, under Obama, and now under Trump. And look, there's no secret that Donald Trump is a deal maker. He ran on being a deal maker. He wants to win. One of the problems I've had with Donald Trump is that he wants to win in many cases at all cost. Now, it's still very early in his presidency. He doesn't have a whole lot of things chalked up yet that he can hold up and say, hey, look, this is what I've won. So I don't want to take that away from him. And I know a lot of you out there are big Donald Trump supporters. I am a supporter of the president. I want him to do good things. I want him to be, someone that's going to make what he would call America great again. I want to see the American exceptionalism be in the front lines again. Things that we all talk about. I know that Donald Trump is not an ideological guy. He's not like a Ted Cruz or a Mike Lee. I know he's not that type of guy. I know he's not going to come out and he's going to be able to, spout the amendments in the Constitution verbatim without actually reading them. I don't know what his stance is on the Constitution for most part. I know that he loves America. I know he loves the country. But one of the things that has always worried me is that he is a deal maker. Now, we'll see how good the deal that he's working out now, because this has to go through Congress. I think that the Republicans are not going to be very happy with this. They've actually been very vocal. Paul Ryan has said that he didn't like the deal. And so is Donald Trump playing both sides of the deck here? Both sides of the card, if you will. Both sides of the coin. He has said that if he doesn't get support from Republicans, he will reach out to people on the other side. This is not a surprise to me. So I'm interested to see what comes about. Now, this could be a shot across the bow to the Republicans to straighten up. The DACA deal, for the most part, was pretty much in contrast to what he ran on when he was running for president about our immigration problems. He said he would get rid of DACA. Well, he got rid of DACA, but he kind of said, look, I'm going to give you guys some time to get a bill to push this through, which I agree that executive orders are not the way to go about making things happen in the country. I understand the power of the president and his right to execute orders or create executive orders to enforce the law. He's not supposed to write the law. Barack Obama unconstitutionally put in DACA. He created legislation, in other words, in order to go against our immigration policies and our immigration law. He does not have the right to do that. I think a lot of people have been giving Donald Trump a hard time with the DACA thing, and I think in some cases he deserves a little bit of it because he's kind of shifted from I hate to use the terms far right because I think that the far right is misconstrued, because to me far right is anarchy and the far left is totalitarianism. So in the terms of we hear far right, it's really European right, which is more nationalism. In the worst case scenarios, it's national socialism, or Nazism would be a form of that. And this nationalist fever that he ran on, that a lot of people from the alt-right embraced, they're disappointed right now. I believe DACA and that needed to go away. But I think, in essence, it needed to go to Congress in order for Congress to handle it. That's what's supposed to do. That's the power that Congress has to make those type of laws. And they can adjust immigration laws because they are the representatives of the people. So I'm not going to beat Donald Trump up too much on the DACA thing. But this debt ceiling thing is something that I am staring straight through his soul on right now. Because the debt ceiling is the biggest issue on the plate of disasters. Are there going to be 50, 100, 200, 1,000 people that are going to die tomorrow or die this weekend because of the debt ceiling increase? No. But if we see a problem in our economic system due to this burgeoning debt, we will look like something of Venezuela, or something even worse, the Weimar Republic, that created the National Socialist fever that created Hitler. I don't think Donald Trump is looking to do something that's horrible in a disastrous way. And I do believe there's some politics at play. We'll see what the results are, because you can do things that look political all day and all, and if they don't pan out to something fruitful, then we have a problem. So many of you may be watching and saying, hey, what do we need to do? Well, we first and foremost need to make our voice heard. That this is an unacceptable deal. Doesn't mean if you're a Trump supporter and you say this is unacceptable, that you hate Donald Trump and all of a sudden you're a never Trumper and all that crap. It means that you can enter onto the battlefield of ideas and you can disagree with someone that you care about. At the same time, I see a lot of people out there that are never Trumpers, that are out there, I told you so, I told you so. Nobody likes that crap, okay? Let's talk about the issues. We can all agree on things and disagree cordially without doing the I told you so dance. That doesn't help anything. Especially if you're a Republican or a conservative, that doesn't help you to promote our ideas in America. And if you're a Trump supporter, making America great, that doesn't do anything in that respect. Sometimes Donald Trump may float the trial balloon and see how the public reacts. And if you sit on it, or you just simply blindly support Donald Trump without understanding the things that are taking place, and don't criticize these things without, you're not doing him any favors. He may be trying to figure out what to do here, and he's listening to you. He is a populist for the most part. And what that means, he's looking for what is popular. I can tell you what is popular. Or rather, I could tell you what's not popular. What's not popular is the financial collapse of the United States. I don't think that we're going to have an issue tomorrow or next year with the debt. But at some point, the bill's going to come to the House. And Donald Trump may not be the guy that opens the mailbox to look at the bill and say, you know what, we can't pay this. This idea that we're going to default on our debt because of the debt ceiling not being raised, an absolute idiot comment by anybody, because that's not the case. We won't defaulting on the debt is saying that we don't even take in revenue. Every single month, we take in billions of dollars of revenue in through taxes. That supports the very important things in the government. So if we were to shut the government down, it is not going to bankrupt the United States. That's ridiculous. At the same time, there's politics involved, and I understand the politics. I understand how this works. You got two storms, one that has already hit Houston, one that has pretty much decimated Texas, at least the southeast side of Texas. You have another storm the size of Texas with 185-mile-an-hour winds that is barreling towards Miami. If Miami gets a direct hit from this, this will be the worst national disaster in American history. There's no doubt about it. The last time a Category 4 storm, which was the biggest storm that ever hit Miami, was in the 20s, I believe. In the system of protecting that city from high water was built in the 60s. The same situation that New Orleans faced. Let's face it. There's people in Miami that don't have automobiles, that don't have ways of getting out of that city. And you have a storm the size of Texas, the size of France, the size of the entire state of Florida, barreling towards that. So if Donald Trump does not do this, the politics will kick in. You know, like the pumps kick in New Orleans? Well, at least like they try to. Apparently they're catching on fire because the fantastic Democratic governor that we have, Mr. Landrieu. That's another day to talk about. But as the pumps would kick in during a storm in New Orleans, well, the politics kick in for Donald Trump if he doesn't approve this debt ceiling. And everybody's going to say that Donald Trump doesn't want to support the government to stay in business in order to be able to help people in these drastic times. I understand the politics there, and it's a legitimate thing. You and I both know that that is not going to stop people from getting helped in Texas, and hopefully Miami doesn't get hit, but it looks like it will. We know that people are going to go down there and help individuals down there. The federal government is the worst help, and I can tell you this from experience. Working here with the Cajun Navy, last year, around this time, when there was a flood here in Louisiana, the federal government was only in the way. They had all these different rules about helping people. Even the local government, the Louisiana government, struggled in order to be able to do the right thing. They actually did work with the Cajun Navy, and we were able to go in and save people. But I can tell you this, folks. With all of the stuff that's going on, with the storms, with all this stuff with the politics, the white nationalists and the black nationalists and the Black Lives Matter and all this crap, I'm going to tell you right now where you can make a difference. And there's all levels of doing this. But the most important thing you can do is reach out to your fellow American. Right now they're the people that need the help. Whether you're in Texas or you're in Florida, hopefully if in Florida you are evacuating because the storm is coming there. But we need to show Americans that are not affected by these areas what America is all about. It's not about the politics. It's not about waiting for the federal government to save us, because they won't. Did the federal government save the Germans during the Weimar collapse? Is Venezuela's government helping them? No. How can we expect 500 some odd people in Washington, D.C. to take care of 320 million people in this country? We can't. They think they can, but they can't. It's impossible. So this is what we need to do, folks. Number one, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I got a ton of other stuff to cover. I hope you're enjoying the show. Let's get out and share this thing. Let's get some people on the battlefield. We're on the Liberty Eagle on Facebook, as well as Lanterns Buzz on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Stick with me for this short break. I'll be right back on the Battlefield Live radio program, Lanterns Media Network, and the Battlefield on Liberty Eagle. Be right back.
Lanterns, illuminating the truth.
People often ask me, they say, Chris, how is it that we can change the minds of many in this country? And I say, well, you first don't start with the mind. You have to start with the heart. You don't change minds without changing hearts. And that's what we're going to do. It wasn't that long ago that you might have not have had hope for the country, and all of a sudden you have a change of heart. We'll expect that other people right now feel the same way that you used to. It's those people that we have to reach out to. It may be you that we have to reach out to. So it's our task to form a community, a group, unified behind principles, unified behind what has made America the country that it is now. It's about liberty. It's about freedom. And everybody wants to experience this. We just have to show them how. It's about you being a lantern shining out the light of truth. And we can bring this all together in one place. It's truly about the shining city on the hill. Hope is not in the hands of someone else. It's within ourselves. It's within our hearts. It's within our minds. And it's about utilizing those things in order to be able to make us free.
Lanterns, illuminating the truth. Battlefield Live.
Battlefield Live, Chris Pilier. Thank you all for joining us. What's up, Jackie? Hello, Wendy. Wendy's she's chatting it up. Nora, hello, how are you doing? Kathleen. A whole bunch of people. Daniel. Everybody on the Battlefield Live radio program. Cindy, what's going on, Cindy? Thank you all for joining us. Dan. Kelly. Got a big audience that is having a good time on the battlefield, making a lot of great points, and it seems that a lot of you are very upset with our representatives, as you should be. So before we go any further, folks, if you're enjoying the show, make sure you follow us in all of our locations, subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, and SoundCloud, as well as YouTube. We are also on iHeartRadio. You can find us at Lanterns Media Network there. Also, make sure you support the Liberty Eagle. A lot of great patriots on that program. I saw Jim Lockwood had tuned in earlier. Great patriot there. Also, give a shout-out to Chris X, who's having some trouble in Texas. And let's keep him in his prayers so we can get him back on the battlefield of ideas in order to be able to discuss things on his radio program. So I want to give a big shout-out to those folks. Also, if you want to follow us on Spreaker, you can do that as well. And we're on Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/lanterns. And I think for $20 you can get one of these cups. $20 a month. These mugs, fancy mugs. So who else am I forgetting? Ron Phillips. I want to thank Ron Phillips from Red Nation Rising. He does a great job supporting all of the Patriots. And, of course, Eric Thompson and others. So let's jump right back into the gene pool, if you will, of ideas. So the debt ceiling issue is just one of many issues. And, look, this is out of Axios. I actually found this on Drudge. The Axios actually seems to be a pretty decent website. They did chronicle that in the last 24 hours, these are some of the things that Donald Trump has done. And we'll throw them out there, and let's keep an eye on what he does with these things. Number one, he handed Pelosi and Schumer what they're calling the deal of the century. Okay, and we talked about that in GoodNet. He's also nodded to bigger government by agreeing to raise the debt limit. Let's be frank, or we can be Chris. And let's say that it's going to be for 3 months, right? Maybe we're trying to get past the storm so we can have a debate later and focus our energies on other things, like the wall, like someone had mentioned on Facebook. We'd like to be able to see some debate about that. Apparently there's not a whole lot of political will. Donald Trump can't go out and do that on his own. I know he said that he was going to build the wall and he was going to get Mexico to pay for it and all that crap. That's a lot of politics. The bottom line is he can't single-handedly pass legislation to build the wall. Now, there is funding. This is one of those things that a lot of people don't talk about. I believe under the Bush administration, they had passed a law that did allow for funding that hasn't been funded through Congress, so he can pressure that. There's not even a law that needs to be passed in order to be able to get some of this funding toward the wall. So that's something to mention. Also, there's something else that's kind of bothering me, and it's been bothering me a lot, that Ivanka, his beautiful daughter, he loves his daughter, she's a progressive, okay? She's trying to push through a child care tax credit, which is basically another entitlement in order to be able to cover family leave and things of this nature. This stuff bothers the hell out of me because that's not something that is of conservative nature. Will it be used maybe as a deal with something else like the wall or something? That may be what's being put on the table here. Donald Trump may be getting frustrated the Republicans aren't moving on anything, and he's trying to free some things up here. Maybe he uses this as a political chip to throw on the table in order to be able to get some of his things passed. We'll see how that plays out, but at the end of the day, this is a huge entitlement. It's another thing that we just can't afford. So we can sit on principles or we can get involved in politics. I'll let you all discuss that on Facebook Live. Also, he also talked about needing a permanent, quote-unquote, permanent legislative fix to the undocumented immigrants issue. So these are things that presidents do, but this is not the Trump that a lot of you may have voted for. A lot of you voted for the guy that set up, basically when he was going to take the bully pulpit and he was going to pressure Congress into doing things. He's now acting more like a tactician. It's a different Trump. He hasn't signed anything yet. He's not, going against his policies that he ran on yet. We'll see how that turns out. Maybe he's shifting in a way to try to maybe politically do some other things. But these are things that we have to watch on, right? So, and what's interesting is he really didn't mention McConnell Orion in his Air Force One interview. So could it be, like I said earlier, the shot across the bow? I think it's very telling that the hurricanes are the big elephant in the room when it comes to the politics here. And I do believe that these storms are in being discussed behind closed doors about being politicized. And a lot of Americans don't know the difference between the debt ceiling and what funds the government and shutting the government down and things of that nature. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit here. Kind of beat that up a little bit. I want to shift to something else because there's a broader issue that I've been really concerned about. Part of it ties into immigration. Last night on the program, I talked about the problem. The biggest problem I see with immigration is not the guy or the gal that comes here from another country to try to work in the United States. That is a smaller problem. A little bigger problem than that is the criminals that come here and they try to take advantage of the American system. That is a problem, a major problem. But that isn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem that I have is undermining Americanism. Undermining what's exceptional about this country, which is our founding, the Constitution. We are an exceptional nation not because of the industriousness of the American people, as much as we would like to look at that. The Cajun Navy is doing fantastic things in Texas, and it will soon be doing fantastic things after Irma passes through Florida. While that is a model of our exceptionalism, it is not what makes us exceptional. Because under a different system, the people like those in the Cajun Navy would not be able to operate in the way that they are, because they would have to have a license, quote unquote, to go and save people. In a socialist system where the government funds, or rather provides you your rights instead of protects your rights. In other words, the sovereign, we often hear about the sovereign, about the monarchy, where the king or the queen is considered the sovereign. They are the representative of the people, but they embody the people. The sovereign is not within the individual. Americanism, the United States Constitution, enshrines us with the sovereignty of our liberty and freedom. We are the sovereign. We are the originators of our power in the United States. We give our representatives in the federal government their power. It's on loan to them. And their number one goal is to protect our rights. That's it. It's not to give out freebies and help people in need and all this stuff. I understand that we could debate about the safety nets and all that. That's not the point. That's not what the founders intended. The founders intended the federal government to be a very small entity that simply was going to work as a federalist republic within a federalist republic to basically work with the states to prevent them from fighting each other, mostly on things like commerce and trade and things of that nature. The reason why I'm mentioning all of this is because our Constitution is under assault. And many of you see it. And you see it on the fringes of where our rights lie. Many of you have maybe been paying attention to what's going on with these monuments all around the country. The monuments are simply a visual image, something that you can see and put your hands on, that is being attacked in order to do something else, to attack something else. The energy behind the anti-monument movement, which is really a socialist movement, a class warfare movement, is intended to destroy the rights that you have. To take your rights and give them to the federal government so they can issue those rights out to other people or redistribute wealth. And there's a lot of evidence of it everywhere. You don't have to look in the belly of the beast when it comes to Antifa and all these different crazy groups. Those are pretty much the fringe groups that represent an ideology that a lot of people in this country subscribe to. And they don't know that they're subscribing to Leninism or Stalinism or Marxism or neo-Marxism. I don't want to get into all the descriptions and the definitions of those things, but we all know that they are bad. We know that Marxist-Leninism is a bad thing. You can only look to places like Stalin's Russia or Soviet Union, or you can look to Mao's China, or you can look to Pol Pot, or you can look to Cuba, or you can look to what's happening now in Venezuela. You don't have to look that far to see that human beings eat garbage and die under those systems. But that's what these people are pushing for. They may or may not realize it. So now that we've talked about this stuff on the surface, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. There's an interview that a guy was doing. Let's see who this person was. He was interviewing New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Many of you may not know who he is. Well, he is a guy that was supporting the communists in Central America during Reagan. And one of the things that we knew when he was getting into office, a lot of people that are politically engaged, like myself and others, knew that this guy was bad news. And now the slick politician with the suit, he's coming out of that suit, and he's now putting on the beret of Che Guevara in some of his commentary, in his interviews. And I want to read part of this interview to you here, and I want to kind of break it open. So a question was asked him. He said, by an interviewer, it says, in 2013, you ran on reducing income inequality. The buzzword, income inequality. What does that mean? It's another word for, or another phrase for equity, which basically means that everybody gets the same amount of income. You know, everybody gets the same check. You know, like the communists do. You basically get your communist card and you get a set of stamps so you can go to the store and buy your Soviet brand cornflakes. And that's the only choice that you'll have. So income inequality is what he's talking about, right? So he says, in 2013, you ran on reducing income inequality. The guy's name was Smith. He says, where has it been hardest to make progress? Wages, housing, schools, question mark. And I want you to listen to the response of Bill de Blasio. He said, what's been hardest is the way our legal system is structured to favor private property. What is this legal structure he's talking about? What is the legal structure, if you will, that is in favor, quote unquote, of private property? Well, that would be your Constitution. Not his, but your Constitution. Because your Constitution protects you and your property in your pursuits to find and achieve property. And not just property, but happiness, as enshrined in our Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So here is Bill de Blasio. This is a further comment. He says, I think people all over the city of every background would like to have the city government be able to determine which buildings go where, how high it will be, who gets to live in it, and what will the rent be. So in other words, strong-arming the system in order for the government to be able to determine the value of things. Now think about that for a minute. If the government can determine what the rent will be, and the government can determine where people build buildings, which they pretty much do, but let's play along. If they control all of these things, the means of production, if you will, what makes that any different than a communist nation? Because that's what communist nations do. Of course, I don't believe that communist nations ever really existed. I think there's people trying to achieve communism, and it's really fascism. That's another conversation for another day. So I want you to listen to this quote, because I think this is kind of embodies what Bill de Blasio is about, and he's just one of many in this country. He says, I think there is a socialistic impulse, which I hear every day in every kind of community. Here is a man of the people, right? I hear from the community that we want socialism, is basically what he's saying. That they would like things to be planned in accordance to their needs. This is what Marx proposed. It's to their needs and not to their ability. In other words, it's not a merit-based system. It's what they need. So who determines what they need? Well, I need a golden toilet. Are you going to give that to me, de Blasio? Because if there's enough people to vote in a quote-unquote big D democratic system, then he would have to give them that. And guess what? You can't do that. And there's reasons that you can't do that. And they're mostly because of the laws of economics. And you can see how those laws of economics work in places like Venezuela, where they're trying to do things that you want to do. He says, and I would too want that. So basically he agrees with that. He says, unfortunately, what stands in the way is hundreds of years of history that have elevated property rights and wealth to the point that it's the reality that calls the tune on a lot of development. So what he's saying is that the founders have created a system that is a part of our history that has prevented this socialist utopia to arise from the smoke of the brainless people like Karl Marx and Bill de Blasio, who believe that the laws of economics will simply part like the Red Sea, like as if he was Moses with his staff. They could sit there and say, you know what, the laws of economics don't matter. The idea of value doesn't matter. And he believes that this history, human experience, is really what it is. Because human experience rejects what he wants, rejects his ideas. And not because we just don't like it. It's because you can see that there's 100 million graves, marked and unmarked, around the world that are a result of the ideology that he wants to enforce on us. He wants to undermine your Constitution so he can do what is better for you that you can't do for yourself, and to be able to give you the things that you need. He further comments, he says, they'd love to have a very, very powerful government. You know, We've seen very, very powerful governments in what they do to people, like gas people, people that don't want to comply, people that don't fit into society, whether it's the color of their skin or, all those different things. That's the big governments that he's talking about, including a federal government involved in directly addressing their day-to-day reality. As if we can't address our day-to-day reality. My day-to-day reality is understanding that I have to work for a living in order to be able to feed my family and pursue happiness. I have to sacrifice my time, my labor, in order to be able to get a paycheck and be able to support myself so I don't have to rely on someone else like you, Mr. de Blasio. You see, he doesn't like private property. What Mr. de Blasio fails to recognize, or he doesn't care, is that our private property is an extension of ourselves. If you work 10 hours a week and you make $10 an hour, that $100 that you make, and you go purchase something with it, isn't an extension of you because you sacrificed in order to be able to purchase that. And you should. And by him and other idiots like him in the progressive world that wish to confiscate that property, they are confiscating a part of you. They're enslaving you. Because then you work and your labor now supports the state. Much like the plantations did in the 1800s that these idiots so, fixate themselves on as if they still exist when they're creating the plantation that they want us all to be enslaved upon. This is a very scary thing, folks, when you see this type of stuff from a mayor of a major city, the biggest city in the country, a guy that was duly elected. This is not the first person to talk this way. He's being pretty candid here. I respect the fact that he's saying this because it really does show his true colors. But my concern is how many people agree with that crap. Is he really hearing this from his people, or is he trying to enforce his ideological view on the people of New York? And if you think that this thing is not an issue, here's another article in the Washington Times. The title is First Amendment on Skids as Free Expression Falls to Fears of Discrimination. There's a recent poll from Virginia Commonwealth University found that half of the state's residents think freedom of speech should play second fiddle to concerns of discrimination. Now, where do you think that is coming from? Do you think that may be from the same people that are protecting the First Amendment or like to protect the First Amendment in the media? They're not protecting the First Amendment. They're using the First Amendment to destroy the First Amendment. Because they're the one that is propagating the myth that a large majority of this country is a racist group of people, which is false. The very fringe that we saw in Charlottesville, the 1% of the 1%, the very radical aspects of the alt-right, if you will, that doesn't make up a majority of the country. That makes up a very, very small minority of a minority. And those people are just as uninformed as these type of people, like de Blasio. Because the system that they want is no different than the system that de Blasio wants. De Blasio is stupid enough to think that his system will create a communist utopia, heaven on earth, when in fact it will create the conditions that the other right-wing radicals, European right-wing radicals, the Nazis wanted. Fascism. Stalin wasn't a communist, he was a fascist. He just operated differently than Mussolini did, or Hitler. Very nuanced differences. The article says another way to put it, a growing number of U.S. citizens say censorship is a good thing. Think about that for a moment. If this is a small microcosm of the broader population, we are in trouble. When people think that we should shut people down because of discrimination. I discriminate every single day. Not against people. I discriminate against things because I make decisions. Decisions require discrimination against something that you don't want to do. I know that's a rhetorical point, but this idea that discrimination is a bad thing, it is when you discriminate against people, but why can't you let them do it in the open forum? I want people to come out of the woodworks if they're true Nazis out there. I want to be able to count them. I don't want to round them up unless they do things that are illegal, but I want to point to them and say, that is a problem. I'm all for that. So I don't want to shut them up. I want them to stand on the tallest mountain and scream their beliefs, what they truly believe, so I can get on the battlefield of ideas with them and destroy that idea. But if we shut them up, or we try to shut them up, first of all, if we try to shut them up, they're not going away. The rights that you take away from those Nazis are the same rights that you will lose. And you won't be able to speak out against the damn communists like de Blasio. Folks, this is where we come in. I talked earlier about, the Cajun Navy and getting out there and getting your hands dirty and getting into the community. I know we like getting involved in politics, the presidential stuff, the politics of Donald Trump, and, what's going on in Washington, D.C. We can't make a whole lot of change. We noticed that. We're frustrated. We thought that Donald Trump was going to go there, and many of us thought that he was going to go in there and wave a wand and all was going to be fixed. It's perceptions that we have to change. We have to educate people. We have to engage on the battlefield of ideas. And you don't do that by name-calling and trolling people and using Pepe the Frog. I know that's all fun and everything. But that doesn't change hearts to change minds, because that's what you have to do. When you sit down at the dinner table with someone maybe at Thanksgiving and you beat them up and call them a troll or whatever, you're not going to get them to open up and talk to you. You have to convince them that you're right, but you have to do that on a level playing field. It has to be somewhat fair, and if it's not fair because they're doing something, just leave it. They'll get their due. The whole point of this is that I think we're in a very fragile state. I don't think we're, like some people say, we're on the verge of civil war. I don't believe that. I think we're better than that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm right, rather. I hope I'm not wrong. But the point is that we're in a fragile state because there's so much polarization in the country that we just have to get things in perspective. I think these storms, as terrible as they are, and the lives that are lost, the property that is lost, I know someone that lost a loved one, and it's horrible. But I think these storms are going to bring some perspective. As horrible as they are, we're going to realize what's important in our lives. And I think that we need that. I don't wish to have it in that way. I wish that that it would just transcend upon us in some kind of, transcendental way. But sometimes we need to see the horror of things in order to be able to realize the reality. Life is tragic. Life is sacrifice. Life sucks sometimes. Look, I don't want to preach, but the point is that we have to get down to the nitty-gritty. We have to get into people's minds with the proper ideas and discuss things, not yell at each other from across a picket line and across barricades. We don't win that battle. I know there's a lot of my right-wing friends out there, the conservatives that are toying with this whole thing of being able to go out there and shout at the other side. We don't win that battle. We're not good at that. And we don't need to be good at that. That's not the battlefield of ideas. We don't win that there. We win with the ideas. We win with the solutions. Unfortunately, there's people in government that don't see that. They only see opportunity in politics. So it's our duty to sacrifice our lives and our sacred honor, as enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, in order to be able to make this country great again. One man in the White House is not going to do that. It's going to come from us, the American people. And we have to take the power back. And that's not some kind of, fist held high, kind of, red flag waving, ha-ha. No, that is, we have to work within the law. We are a nation of laws. We have to work within those laws, and we have to use prudence in order to be able to get things done And we don't have to get things done just to win. Winning feels good, but in some cases that's all it is. It's feel good. It doesn't actually do the right thing. Taking a big shot of whiskey feels great, but the next day you pay the price. So it's for us not to deal with a political hangover in 2020. And I'm hoping that Donald Trump has got something up his sleeve here with these decisions that he's decided to make. And we'll see. We'll see how that plays out in the next couple of months. But we have to get the things back on the table. The wall is important not because we're trying to keep a bunch of people out. It's because we're trying to protect our nation. We're trying to put borders around our nation, or at least enhance the borders around our nation in order to be able to be a nation. We can't be a nation without borders. And those borders mean things. Those borders encapsulate what is America. And America is more than just geography. It's more than just property. It's more than just the parchment that is the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. It's the ideas behind that. You can burn Washington, D.C. to the ground. You can burn Miami to the ground with a hurricane. But you can't take the ideas away. You can't take the heart of America out of each and every one of us. And we may be going through dark times, folks. We may have some bad things. I may be wrong. We may have civil war and something of that nature. But at the end of the day, it's the ideas, and we can't lose that. We have to reinforce those ideas. And we have to instill that not only in our friends and family, but in our children, to be able to pass this on. Because Ronald Reagan said it. He said, all it takes is to lose a generation. And he was saying basically the same thing that Lenin said. Lenin said, give him a generation and he will change the nation. And he will. It's not just changing a nation, it's destroying it, it's tearing it down. That's what progressivism is. The core of progressivism is destroying borders. And that border means everything from a line that's on a map to the borders around your sovereignty. So we got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. And in order for to do that, we have to become more than just patriots. We have to become warriors on the battlefield. And we have to study up. We have to understand history. We have to understand philosophy. But we also have to understand politics, and we have to understand culture. Because the battle that we wage is not in a book. The ideas come from here so we can learn to battle in the culture, because that's where the battle is won, in the culture. And the communists, the Marxists, the progressives, they all know this. That's why they're trying to take the culture. They're trying to destroy the borders in our culture. They don't even want to call men men and women women. Why? Because that is destroying the culture. That's tearing it down. It's postmodernism. So it's very important that we do this, folks, and I'm just one of the many sentinels out there that are trying to protect the light of truth, that is trying to protect the greatness that is America, the exceptionalism that is America. There's many of you out there, and it's more than just us watching a video on Facebook Live and talking to our people that basically agree on the same thing, preaching to the choir. We have to engage on the battlefield, and that's what we have to do. There's many ways to do this. Number one, you can share this podcast. If you don't feel confident enough in your ideas and your beliefs, and you want to learn a little bit more before you get engaged, that's fine. Bring them to me. I'll talk to them, and they may be right. So you can share our podcast. You can go to iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, and SoundCloud, as well as iHeartRadio. We're there as well. You can find us on the Liberty Eagle every Tuesday and Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook at Lanterns Buzz as well, and you can find us on Twitter at Lanterns Buzz. You can also subscribe to our podcast on Spreaker. If you're a Spreaker listener, you can check us out there and subscribe, and you'll get notified when we go live. Also, you can go to our website, lanterns.buzz. It's not just me on lanterns.buzz. There's a lot of other patriots like me there sharing the light of truth. That is what the lantern is. It's the the bringer of light, and it requires a lot of people to make that light bright. One candle will light a dark room, but it takes a lot of us in order to be able to brighten up the country. So I want to thank you for joining me on the battlefield, folks. It's been a great pleasure to speak with you. I will be back next week on Tuesday, in hoping that everything goes well with the storm, at least in my part, so I can get back on the battlefield and share my ideas with you, and hopefully we can all learn something together. Thank you for joining us on the battlefield. Make sure you go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/lanterns. You can donate there as little as $1 a month, or if you want to go up to it, maybe, hey, $20 a month, you'll get one of these nice mugs. We'll send it to you. And thank you for joining me on the battlefield. Chris Pilier, Lanterns Media Network, and we'll talk to you later. Tater.